Many blessings to you. I hope that you're all doing wonderful. I was inspired to come on and do a little share and not about the mystery teachings, but about spirituality in general and really the importance of purpose, right? When we think of the word purpose, we can say that it's what we came here for. It is what defines us, purpose. And in many ways, of course, it does, and it can. We could be purposeful every day, doing our work, being present with friends, families, right? But the purpose that I'm sort of inspired to share this morning is your soul's purpose, your passion, right? And most of us kind of know like what that feels like, right? It's this yearning, this pull that is undescribable at times, but very potent, and it drives us. It's driving us, right? And I say we don't always know what it is, and yet it drives us. It's almost like a paradox because there's something inwardly and innately that is trying to convey a message of I desire to be this. I desire to fulfill that, right? And we may not always consciously know what that is, and yet we have this pull. Sometimes, how that pull may represent itself is feeling unfulfilled, not feeling complete, not feeling happy, right? So we could be doing many things and yet still have that feeling of, I almost want to say sadness because we know that we're not doing something or being something that is bringing us joy. So when we kind of bring this all together, when we talk about purpose, we start to see sort of like a map of what it is to be purposeful and how you're going to know if you are being purposeful. Well, if you look at some of the pieces that I just spoke of, you're going to know you're on purpose because you're going to feel joyful. You're going to know that you're on purpose because you're feeling fulfilled, because it's bringing joy and happiness to you, right? And that is what the soul is searching for, is to have that sense, that feeling of fulfillment, right? How do we go about that? Well, that sense of purpose can be as unique as we are. There's no right or wrong. There's, no protocol that needs to necessarily be followed in order to get to that place of fulfillment. For some, fulfillment may be being in solitude in the mountains, perhaps being a monk or a nun, right? And a sense of fulfillment in being in that state of solitude, of being connected with something greater, right? And not being connected to anything else. For others, it could be just the opposite, being in the limelight, being a spokesperson, being an inspirational coach where you are in the front lines, where you've been graceful and, I would say lucky enough to, have an audience and, to be able to do that, to be that, and bring a lot of fulfillment to the audience, to the people who are hearing or watching you, right? And then that in between is as unique as you are. Some feel like creating art, writing a book, right? Creating sacred jewelry. All of these endeavors or callings are what? Are part of an energetic fuel, which we can call passion, that is fueling the soul in a very creative way that then spills out in sharing and manifesting and creating for others, So we kind of go back, maybe you're called to write a book, and in writing that book, you're going to share that book with others, which in turn will inspire others to go on a path, right? Maybe you want to write music. And what's important about the purpose is that we shouldn't compare ourselves to anyone. We shouldn't have expectations that we're going to become the next Picasso or, Mark Anthony. Although we could. But it's not about that. It's not about obtaining fame or fortune. It's about being purposeful and feeling that sense of fulfillment and purpose, whether it's one person or a million, right? Because the soul is not counting people or numbers. It is just looking to have the containment of that feeling, of that experience, right? So I often, of course, speak to many people. And one of the things that I observe is people, and I'm staying very general with this, but people who may suffer from depression, people who may suffer from anxiety, people who may suffer from an imbalance, from dis-ease in some way. It is not coincidental to observe that if any of those situations may be happening, or all of them, is probably because they're not in touch with their soul's purpose. They're not in touch with that fuel, that passion that ignites a soul to be in that space of joy, and the suppression of that, or the inability to be in touch with that, can then surface in many ways, like I just described a few minutes ago. Depression, isolation, anxiety from uncertainty. When we are on purpose and we're focused on a purpose or several purposes, then it gives us a reason. It helps us to have that reason to be proactive, whether it's to get up every morning and work on that purpose, to speak to people about that purpose, and just to be full within ourselves of feeling purposeful, which then brings us joy and happiness, right? And so many say they don't know what that is. How do I find that purpose? And actually, it's one of the biggest questions I get asked is, well, I don't know how to find that. How do I find that? And I think that what could be very crucial, vital, is to take a step back first as you ask that question, to see if you are in touch with something within you that you feel can spark you, something hidden that you haven't addressed. We live in a society where we feel compelled to do whatever we need to do in order to have a livelihood, right? And that often can take many of us to do something that we don't necessarily love or we don't necessarily care for, but we're going to do it anyway because it's important to make a livelihood, right? And what happens is that we become a product of that we feel obligated to do, and lose touch with our creativity, with that soul's calling that I'm talking about, with that soul's passion, right? And it's not necessarily a question of, quitting your job, becoming homeless in order to fulfill your purpose, but really finding a balance, if you can, a commitment to discover what that purpose is, and then to commit yourself to being proactive as often as you can, and working on it. Even if you have a 9 to 5 job, cultivating, nurturing that purpose as it continues to then grow and manifest. When I was writing one of my, I've written 19 books. When I was writing my second one, I want to say, I had a lot going on in my life. I had a small child. My mother was living with me. I had a sick daughter. I had a lot going on. And there were times when I had no time to come and write that book. And the only time that I would find would be at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night after everybody was settled and asleep. And I was so exhausted that sometimes all I could invest in that book was probably one sentence or a paragraph. And I often thought about how long it would take me to write that book. Like, was I ever going to finish it? But the commitment to show up, even if it was to write that one sentence, eventually got me to finish that second book. And of course, 19 books later, And so what I'm saying is that we need to show up for the commitment. We need to know that we're working towards something that's meaningful, right? That's purposeful to not only you, but to whoever or however you're going to be sharing that purposeful creation. And know that you're going to get there sooner or later. And the more that you commit yourself to knowing that you will, then that will manifest, right? So how you find it then is by really getting in touch with your inner self, right? I hope that this share has helped, just inspired to share it. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, you know where to find me. And as always, I leave you with my love, with my light, and with my peace. Love you guys.